CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Welcome back to CMMS Radio. On screen, you've got Ryan Jones. He is Solution Manager, SAP Field Service Management, and Enterprise Asset Management. He's the Global Solution Manager for SAP. Ryan Jones, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's so everybody knows Ryan and I were at the same place at the same time, and we couldn't find time to connect and record. And we were at Mainstream UK Summit, the first one ever at Millennium Point in Birmingham. And we thought, hey, since we couldn't do it there, let's do virtual. So I want to give a shout out to the Mainstream community for putting on a great event. And first and foremost, how did you feel about the event? What did you think of that event? I know for me, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, look, it was my first Mainstream event. I can say I've heard a lot of good things from some other SAP colleagues who have been in Melbourne and in the Perth sessions. So I thought it was awesome. And really what was different was it's really an outside-in view, which is a little bit unique for us sometimes at SAP as well. And there's so many practitioners there that we really get insights into maintenance and reliability outside of our SAP bubble that sometimes we're confined to. So I thought it was awesome. Lots of great energy. Also, a shout out to Steve for connecting us as well. And very much looking forward to being at the next Mainstream events as well. So overall, 10 out of 10 event.
Yeah, I feel the same. And, you know, they had a nice little setup over there for me. And I got to see how structured it was, which I go to not as many shows as everybody else, but I go to some shows and I got to really see what I thought was a very well orchestrated and well thought out event that was really focused a lot more on that concept of reimagining maintenance and reliability, and also bringing in a lot of, you know, horsepower, firepower, real deal pros that could give great sessions that you could take something away. And then to have, you know, different sponsors and supporters of the event, I saw how it all came together. Just really good stuff. So let's jump in. SAP, a lot of people that come on CMMS Radio, some of my, what I would call real deal pros, you know, that are experts, that have been there, that have done it, not just using the software, but being in the trenches, being on the front lines, putting it all together with operations and maintenance, getting them working well together. We talk about SAP. We don't record too much about it, but we talk about how it's a big platform. It's a true enterprise solution. It's been around for, I couldn't even tell you how long. And sometimes I hear from people that, you know, this is the kind of solution you want if you're a true enterprise. Yeah. However, you're going to put in a lot of work to set it up. And one of the things I'm always fascinated by is how do you get better frontline adoption when it comes to these larger enterprise solutions that the frontline often is like, hey, that's a lot of clicks and all that. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? I know I'm hitting you with a hard one.
No, very valid and fair. So happy to tackle that, Greg, right? So SAP is a large solution, and it's the number one ERP on the planet. So in saying that, there's a lot of functionality within SAP. And in that's often led to perhaps some enablement challenges. It's led to perhaps maybe not the exact type of frontline adoption that we would have liked, but this is going back many years. Mm-hmm. SAP can be very powerful. It can be configured to address your specific business needs. But what we've done over, let's say, the last 10 years or so is we've really focused on the end user experience and also the different deployments of SAP. So in saying that, there are, of course, ERPs that can be set up for large multinational organizations and have all of their processes completely configured. But we also do have lean offerings like our public cloud offering, which is more of an out-of-the-box offering for maintenance organizations or CMMS that are more lightweight and are more designed towards being able to achieve quick time to value and setting this up. And in doing that as well, it's important to note that when we think about maybe the SAP that a lot of us know, and myself, if I think back 13 years ago in my career, I actually started as a procurement buyer. And I remember thinking, this is a tool we're going to use, it's SAP. And folks had told me that it was a little bit tricky to use, but once you get the hang of it, it was smooth sailing. And I can say there definitely was a learning curve associated with that. But it's important to note that that's just the base functionality within the ERP. We've also developed frontline applications and native offline, online mobile apps that are 100% designed for the frontline worker. So not going in and executing T codes, which of course now is a thing of the past. We have a new user experience with Fiori and of course a lot more intuitive there. But needless to say, we've done a lot of things, listened to our customer base, and have really put together what we think is a user-friendly and intuitive offering for enterprise asset management, and as well as those frontline workers who are using these applications on a day-to-day basis.
You know, and you said some of it already, like primarily we're talking about an ERP system that served large percentages of this overall industry when we talk about manufacturing and related, and needed that additional functionality because there was opportunity there. And there were probably a lot of people here and there and everywhere raising their hands saying, hey, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And we're like, well, we should be able to. And then you did. And that's how these systems tend to grow, right? And ERP can start to have some of the functionalities that other solutions might have. And you can maybe eliminate that spend for a client because now they can start leveraging your platform. And then you're kind of making it work. You've got maybe some silos, maybe not. And that's something you have to work on constantly. When it comes to, because you've spent obviously some time on a regular basis with maintenance and reliability and learning from practitioners, the people that are on the plant floors, what do you find to be their not necessarily quickest path to success, but most sustainable path to success when it comes to getting that frontline adoption? Not so much the product, but what do you find the approaches are that your clients that are really successful with that are doing?
So look, one of the periods of my career I'm very grateful for was I spent 6 years in solution advisory. And in doing that, it gave me the opportunity to spend a lot of time on the shop floor, in the oil field, in different working environments, doing ride-alongs with utilities, and really understanding the day-to-day routines they do, the jobs they execute, and really how our tools can supplement what they do to execute their job at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Now, going to your question, I think that some of the most important things that we have to do for, let's just start with the maintenance technician and just use that as an example, is SAP does have a very configurable and extensible platform. So making these tools as simple as possible for a lot of these frontline workers, if that's really what the intended outcome is. So knowing they need their work orders, they need their operations, they need the ability to add a part, to return that part to inventory, to close an order, to create a notification and add time. Putting these in very intuitive locations, let's just think about, in industrial tablet, putting these in very intuitive locations so they know exactly when they're going into that application, this is what I need to do. I don't need all of this clutter, albeit clutter for them. For many organizations, these things can be very powerful. But all that to say, I think that we really need to configure these applications and keep in mind who is the person using this. Do they need these additional 20 or 30 bells and whistles? Probably not. So creating role-based specific applications that are dedicated to exactly what that frontline worker is doing. And the same extends to if you're a maintenance planner or a scheduler, designing your launch pad with the 7 apps that you're using the most frequently. So it's there. You can quickly become a super user in those core apps that you're doing. You don't have to remember all of these T codes that, again, are a thing of the past. A lot of people love them. But again, the modern workforce is more so used to this app-based experience. So putting all this together in a very intuitive way that allows them to get their job done quickly. That's what I would say, Greg.
So a couple of things that you said there. One, I like that you said these two things separately. You mentioned the planner, the maintenance planner, and then you mentioned the maintenance scheduler. I think that's really important because there's I don't know how common this practice is, but I think a lot of people think those two roles can and should be combined. And when I talk to some of the people that really get it and understand, they say you have to be very careful with that, and they should not. So I don't want to go down that wormhole, but I wanted to just give you, a shout out for saying it that way. But what I'm hearing, the second question or thing I want to talk about and really get into is this configurability. A lot of the solutions on this planet are configurable in some way, shape, or form. But based on your role, what you've done over these years, because you're arguably 10-year mark with where you're at right now.
Coming up on 10 years now.
Probably nearly 4 in the existing role, where it sounds to me like you get to spend a lot of time, not only in these environments, but with these people in the different departments so that you can help them figure out, hey, we need to clear the clutter for you and set it up this way because this is how you work and this is how your team already works and succeeds, so they can get rid of all the noise. But at the same time, that's still allowing the overarching solution to connect to the entire business, so they don't have to deal with what they really don't need to see, and then everybody else has the right kind of visibility. Is it really, when it comes to a scenario where someone says, well, this isn't really working for us, is it a failure for those, and I want to be kind and fair here, but is it a failure for those organizations with their frontline workforce to just be so resistant? Is it that they aren't willing to do all the work because they got to slow down a little bit to do it? Or does it fall back on you and the organization as a vendor that provides the solution to kind of crack that code? I think I might know the answer, but I want to hear your take on that because it's a common kind of scenario.
It's a combination of it all. In my opinion, Greg, at least, be curious to get your thoughts there in a moment. But look, change is hard. Moving from paper to tablets and smartphones to execute jobs for technicians who have been used to doing something for several decades is not something that happens overnight. So I think we're typically going to see a little bit of resistance in just about every single project. That doesn't mean everyone's going to be resistant, but there are going to be a lot of senior folks who have done their thing for several decades. They like how they're doing it. Why would they change? So in doing that, I think that we really need a good change management program. So what I've seen with some of the most successful implementations of our solutions is awesome project teams. There's single point of contacts and there's subject matter experts who are there to help these people, to coach them, and really help enable them with the platform. So that's part of also going in and slowing down and understanding the value of executing this. Now, this coming back to us, this is super important. We always need to be in the loop if we're going to make such changes, such enhancements. And this is what we're very dedicated in. So in the EAM space, we do have a lot of customer advisory boards. So we work with strategic customers across different industries. I know a lot of SaaS solutions and EAM vendors are doing similar things, but it's so important for us to get that feedback from those super users and really understand what are the enhancements that we have to make? I'll give you an example of one of our mobile applications. Very powerful mobile application. I won't put in plugs for the name of the application and so on and so forth.
Well,
But
I don't mind if you say the name of the application. I think that can be helpful for people.
Okay, perfect. Just don't want to use it as a sales opportunity, but Service and Asset Manager, when it first came out, one of the pieces of feedback that we got was we need to really configure a lot of these home screen buttons. We need to put icons at the top that are very plain, simple. Okay, I have 10 work orders due, instead of going in and drilling into this at the bottom and seeing I have these 10 work orders, or I have X amount of notifications. Here's my time logged. So putting this in very simple areas where the technician can see it and just drill in, start their work, and execute their job as they normally would. So small things like that, just in terms of personalization and screen layouts, they said, hey, we need the ability to personalize and save X filters. So meaning, okay, I only want this work saved to X work center with X types of work orders, and I want to save these filters. Sounds like basic table stakes, but sometimes when you're developing a product, you need this immediate feedback coming back from the end user. And then we, in turn, can actually put this directly into the product. So we are, of course, laser focused on one thing, which is adoption. And to have customers adopt products, they need to want to use it. It needs to be intuitive. So needless to say, we're working in lockstep with our customers, and we truly see them as a partner, not just a customer.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a common message, a common approach, and there are a lot of things that can kind of get in the way of that or disrupt that. If you have, say, for example, certain champions at a client site that leave or go into a different, say, role, and that starts to create that gap and diminish visibility one direction or the other, because, you know, if you've got reps that are following up on the account, they're trying to figure out, and it takes 2 weeks to find out who their new contact is. That can happen. That's a real thing. And sometimes we want to be mindful of that. And I'm not saying, that it's an easy way to get a pass on those disruptions, but those are the kinds of things that when we talk, when we're not recording and we're at a conference or I'm meeting with some people that I know, and we're talking about just this overall thing about maintenance programs and how to do better asset management, it's those basic elements of not only moving properly as a team, being bought in as to the quote unquote why we're doing this and that it really makes an impact. We've got the standardization that can all very easily fall apart. So I think sometimes on one side or the other, a lot of times at the client sites, they don't do enough in the way of contingency planning because they may not realize that they really have to. And that's also another disruption to what they're doing. And if they're still stuck in more of a reactive state, they're going to have a very difficult time finding the time and the resources and the humans to get on this part of the project, because they're losing time constantly. It's all about production most of the time, which we know is true, but there's this kind of lifeblood behind that production, which is the actual maintenance being done in a way that's not running around like a chicken with your head cut off, putting out fires, but keeping things maintained and running well. Things are supposed to be relatively quiet if we're doing it at a really higher level, moving towards excellence, right? Have you seen some of those types of operations where there's a lot of that success and they have good succession planning, where you get to see it unfold and they're really leveraging the platform based on their own, say, existing fundamentals that are really strong and kind of from maintenance, and it's creating reliability where they really thrive on the platform and you have measurable results?
Absolutely. And that's one of the fun parts of the job. And, the most rewarding thing you can do as a solution provider is, have customers telling their story and using your products, right? So if I think about maybe some of the most successful implementations I've seen, again, they do have those subject matter experts, but they have a lot of these geographically spread out. And what they also often have is things like web portals and wikis and kind of who to contact in case of certain issues. And I've also seen that they're even documenting some of these challenges. And then we actually do have some reviews with one of these customers. I won't say the name, but they write down, here's all the challenges, and then this feeds back directly into our customer influence portal. And these are things that we can immediately put well, not immediately, of course, has to go through some review and what have you, and take some time to develop and prioritize that, but bringing that back directly into our product. One good example of this, again, this customer, when they first rolled out our mobile application, of course, with the planning and scheduling, the mobile technician said, well, hey, I can't use this. And they said, why? They said, well, I can't take a picture. And what happened was the project team, they were using iPads, and they ordered a different case for a different version of an iPad. So what happened was it was actually blocking the camera on the iPad. So the technicians actually started, because these things were basically locked onto this, were taking special equipment and trying to take off these cases directly on there. And that was just one of the quick lessons learned that they had, right? So you're going to run into a lot of these things as you roll out a project. But again, I think it's very important to understand that, again, change is hard, but remember what you're working towards. And this individual customer, actually, they've now saved 1.9 hours per work order. And this is through having all of these forms digitized. Now, when I say 1.9 hours per work order, this isn't like they're going from, 3 hours to 0.9 or 1.1 rather. These are more longer cycle jobs. They're going up and they're climbing up into windmills. So they need to make sure that they have all of their parts. They have all of their forms easily documented there. Because even if you go up in one of these windmills and then you forget your part, well, it's 30 minutes up and down to get these parts. So making sure that they have those the first time, but then they can also execute all of these forms online, offline. So a bit kind of mid to longer cycle type of work, but they were able to save roughly 2 hours per order. And they did start a little bit rocky. They had those challenges like the case blocking the camera. But after that, now they're one of our happiest customers. They've spoken at Sapphire. They're a public reference customer. So hearing those type of stories is, again, one of the most gratifying things that we can really hear coming from the product organization.
That is, and I think everybody wants to hear those stories when it comes to people that want to learn what's out there, even if they're not going to use your solution. When you hear from customers that are thriving on some kind of technology and they're telling that story, they're probably going to talk a little bit less about the technology and more about what it's really doing with the people and the process that they follow. Yeah. And that's where, when you say, well, they're saving 1.9 hours per work order on this certain type of work order, that sounds to me like, if it has anything to do with any kind of energy, is going to be a very expensive work order. And typically time is of the essence, depending on the type of work order, even if it's a preventive maintenance item that's on a schedule, some kind of a cadence based on maybe even condition monitoring. It depends. I don't want to go down that wormhole for this episode, but you can start to see how that connects and translates into value, not only for the organization, but getting back down to those basic elements. And the most important piece is the people, the guys and the gals that are doing the work, that can do the right work at the right time, in the right amount of time, but they're not necessarily rushed. Yeah. That starts to really impact their ability to thrive in their own role, and they're part of a team. And look, I'm always trying to put it all together, which is not the easiest thing to do. I have a lot of people I lean on in the industry to actually do that. They're really good at it. different companies, whether it's a solution provider or someone that actually is going to these sites out in the field and solving these problems with their specialized technology and all their experience. That's why I like having these kind of random conversations that aren't planned, because I can just kind of pepper you with questions and, don't really want to jam you up too much, but at the same time, I want real insights from what you're seeing. I don't want to have to worry about questioning your practitioner background or anything, because you're in a product management role, dealing with field service, learning from your clients, and your knowledge builds over all those exposures as well. Doesn't mean you have to be the one that's climbing up and working on a wind machine or climbing on a machine, although that helps. Do you, I'll switch it a little bit. Do you find that within your own organization, at least with what exposure you have, because, it's a big organization, it's not like, every single person that's there, but do you find there's a greater benefit for you and your teams to help your clients when your employees are from those environments? They have actually been in manufacturing, they've actually been in oil production, they've been in wind energy or whatever it might be. Is that something that you make an active practice of, to your knowledge, to bring those kind of people in to interface?
Big time. So we do also have our industry business unit at SAP, and we do rely on these folks an awful lot. And a lot of these folks do come directly from industry. So whether this is oil and gas, utilities, manufacturing, rail, and so on and so forth, they really understand the challenges that these people are facing because they've walked in their shoes. Myself, before coming to SAP, I spent just over a year actually at DHL Supply Chain in operations. So more on the shop floor side of things, but I can really at least rely on that experience and being, an operations supervisor at that time on what maintenance looks like, at least on the shop floor. And then as well, again, being very fortunate enough to work with a lot of our customers and be invited for things like factory tours or ride-alongs or going up into the oil sands in Alberta. These were some of the most rewarding opportunities, at least for me as a product guy and a solution guy, that I've had to be able to really understand that, talk to the people, see how they use tools. But needless to say, absolutely yes. We love having those people that are at SAP and can combine that industry knowledge, have walked in their shoes, and then marry this up with SAP's solutions and really how this can help solve their challenges. So 100%, Greg. We can't get enough of them, quite frankly.
Well, and I think that's a challenge for all the companies, the solution providers at different levels, whether it's a piece of software or several pieces of software, other technologies like things that you use for vibration analysis and on like that. You want to have at least some of that available on your own team that really can put it together. And I also think the idea of getting our folks that don't have that to seek out additional knowledge and understanding from your clients, going to site visits, going on ride-alongs through a facility, all of it can feed their ability to service those clients. One of the things I've always thought is that some people that don't have the experience can learn in a certain way how to help their clients that know to make the solution work the way they're trying to make it work. That's a real thing that actually can work really well. I've seen it with my own eyes where someone on day one didn't know much about any of it. And 10 or 11 years later, I know that sounds like a long time to everybody nowadays, but they're really understanding when somebody asks them a question that years in the past, they're glossed over, putting them on hold, saying, hey, I got to call you back. They're running down the hall asking me, have you ever heard of this? Do you know what that is? And I'm like, yeah, this is this, that is that. So everybody, when you're working at a software company, if you don't really know what people are asking you about, whether you're on the sales or you're doing support or you're doing implementations, ask lots of questions and seek out the knowledge. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to switch you to what all first timers on virtual episodes, at least, have to go through on CMMS Radio. It is the fun question segment. Are you ready for that?
Let's go. Sounds
All right.
exciting.
No wrong answers on any of this stuff. You just answer however. You can't get any of them wrong. What is your favorite music?
Rock and roll.
All right. I like
90s.
that.
90s.
Yeah. We'll take it. We'll take it. Second question for the fun question segment is, what is your favorite sport or hobby? And on sport, it does not have to be one that you play. It could be one you like to follow and cheer for and root for.
Yeah. So, you know what? Growing up in Nova Scotia, I played ice hockey my entire life, or as we say, hockey. But, you know, I'm traveling a lot now. I'm used to people saying ice hockey. So it would be ice hockey. But I have to say, I love watching soccer, especially international soccer or football, as a lot of viewers out there will say. So, yeah, really excited, especially the World Cup coming to North America this summer.
Yeah. A lot of people are buzzing about that. And look, if you're from Canada, it's not uncommon for that to be your sport, whether you played it or you root for it. It's a real thing. And look, I get it. I appreciate it. So the big one on the fun question list, I guess, the fun questions list. I don't know. Number 3, the big one, no wrong answers, whatever you think, whatever you do. What is your opinion, your philosophy, your approach? Is it even a thing when it comes to the concept of work-life balance?
At this point, I think it's a bit of work-life integration. And it depends on kind of everyone. Everyone, you know, sets their own boundaries, right? For me, I do work in a global role, which means I can be working with customers in Australia, over to California. So personally, I'm, you know, very happy, you know, working a little bit of the extra hours, if you will. But what I do try to do is make sure that I take time, at least on my weekends, or, you know, a couple hours or an hour in the evening to spend time with my wife, to make sure that I'm, you know, maintaining that, right? So I think it's a little bit of work-life integration at this point, but again, everyone has their own take. So I guess that's why you're asking the question.
It is. And the reason I say there are no wrong answers is this is to get to know you. This is to get people thinking. This is to get people to maybe say, oh, yeah, I think it's like that too. Or they might go, no, I do it a little bit different. We're kind of using that to wind down the episode and to get to know you a little bit personally. But there are no wrong answers if you've had success and you've learned over your years, and it might help one person out there just to even think about it. So with that, first, we want to give a big shout out to the mainstream community and Steve Morris for getting us connected so we could do a post mainstream UK summit episode virtually. So we're a little late to the game, but we're going to get it out there now. And I want to thank you, Ryan Jones of SAP, for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Greg, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity. And Steve, thanks for connecting us as well.
Awesome. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.